we will get going. Here we go. All right. So week 7, welcome to week 7. Yeah, this week and next week, and then we're done. Let's look at the week 7 announcement, and then I want to clarify the due dates because there was a message in the chat about that today. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear and y'all are clear on due dates. So there is there's how to make an appointment. Penultimate, that's the word for the week, penultimate, meaning the next to the last. Gotta love Princess Bride. That's where that reference comes from. Hopefully there's some Princess Bride fans in the audience there, maybe. Let me just post a message that we are doing this. Week 7 walk through is now. There we go. Okay, and then for week 7, right? And then let's get her done. We are moving on to having done toddlers or infants, toddlers, middle, school child, adolescents. Now we're moving on to adults, which is pretty much what everybody in this class, I believe, is. Early, middle, or late. And so that is what your the lessons and the assignments for the week are going to focus on. And some of the goals that you'll do. And there's your overview with your lesson pages. And so once that this walkthrough is done and transcribed, then I will post it on those pages. These are the focus areas for your quiz this week, the week 7 quiz. And so I did them according to the developmental stage. So 2 questions on early adulthood, 2 on middle adulthood, and then late adulthood. And then some short answer questions based on your assignments for the week or your lesson pages. And let's go back to the home page and go back to welcome to week 7. So we looked at that, and then your assignments for the week. So you have your growth and development journal again for the week, and I put the prompts for each stage there. I also, I believe, posted, let me double check and make sure. No, not what I wanted. That's what yeah, journal prompts for each week. So I did go back and write for each week the journal prompts that are expected, because as I was starting to go through the journals, I am looking through them. I may not have put points down. I'm trying to leave some comments for people. Overall, they're pretty good. The main point would be to try and make them a little bit more as a resource, like have some links or some pictures, things that are going to solidify the concepts in your mind so that you can use it as a tool later on if you need to. And so that's what I would suggest. But I did put each week's prompts there, so you do have that available to you. And we are on week 7. And so there are the prompts. I really like this particular question that talks about the different generations, because it goes back to 1900, which I think is pretty cool. So I really like that one, and hopefully you will as well. You want to say hi? Say hi. I don't know if they can see you. Hello, there you are. Hello, there's Petunia. Hello, my Petunia. Okay, and so we will go through the assignments and the lessons, and then I did also want to review the due dates. Who was it? Sarah and Mary brought to my attention that the due dates were a little off. I do for week 8 often have them scattered through the week so that you can finish one and move on to the next one. But I was a little, I had moved some of them up unwillingly, so I did go back and change that. So so everybody's clear on the due dates, the health promotion campaign, that will be due July 27th. So not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday or Saturday. So sorry. And then we move on to the week 8 assignments. So because the last day of the summer session is August 3rd, which is a Sunday. Grades will be due on that Tuesday. So allowing time for you to turn things in and for me to grade them, it helps to spread things out over week 8. So that's why I do it that way, so that everything's not due on the 3rd. Also, if I give you feedback, because that's what I do oftentimes, is I'll give you feedback and say, if you want to review it or resubmit it, that's fine. And if everything's due on August 3rd, then there's not an opportunity to do that. So that's kind of my thinking behind scattering those due dates through week 8. So this particular one is due Wednesday. The next one is due Friday. The journal for week 7 is still due on July 30th, as it would normally be scheduled, on the Wednesday after the week is done. However, the week 8 journal, would be due on the Saturday. So that is moved up like half a week. So hopefully you can, work on that at the same time and get those done. You can always turn things in early, always. And some of you do, which is great. And I appreciate that. The week 8 quiz will actually open on Monday. It'll open Monday at noon and be open through Saturday. So instead of opening on Thursday and being due on Sunday, it will open on Monday and be due on Saturday. So you have all week to work on that instead of just a few days. And then there are 2 surveys that I need you to take. They are anonymous, so there's no way to identify who the student is. One is a survey course feedback. This is very similar to the one that we use in nursing and health sciences. And so it provides feedback on, did I meet, not me, but the course, did it meet the objectives? And things like that. So that's very important. And that information, there's a place for you to leave suggestions. And so that's very important on how to make this a better course as we move forward. And then Sarah, hello, Sarah. And welcome. And then the other one is actually an instructor evaluation. Oh, that's where that week 8 quiz went. I thought I had that there. So the instructor evaluation, go ahead and edit that. It does have to do with the way that I teach the class. Again, it is anonymous, but it does help me very much to know where I need to do better or focus different things. Instructor, there we go. Let's get rid of it. And I know my worst thing is probably getting grading done on time. And I am aware of that, and I do apologize. I do like to leave feedback, and hopefully that's very helpful, but please, write that down if that's a problem for you, not an issue, because things, I can always get better on some things. Now, the key thing about those 2 particular surveys is that if 90% of the students of y'all complete the survey, each survey, all the students, y'all will receive 2 extra, well, we don't do extra credit. Y'all will receive like 2 participation points per survey. So you have an opportunity to earn 4 points added to your total points for the course if at least 35 students complete the survey. So if 35 students complete 8.6, then all students will get the 2 points. And if only 30 students complete 8.7, then those 2 points won't be awarded, but at least you will have 2 points from 8.6. So I tend to do that to help students complete the survey, because the feedback is very valuable to me. And generally speaking, students that need points, 4 points is not going to bump them up a grade. And the students that are already doing well, it just adds to the points for them already doing well. So that's my thinking on that. So please let me know if anybody has questions. And week 8 is open. Let me just double check here. Should be, because I am notorious for saying, oh yes, it's open, and not having opened anything. But I'm pretty sure week 8 is open. Yep, everything for week 8 is there. So you should hopefully be able to work on all of that. Let's go to view a student. All right, before we move into the week 7 information, any questions from the students that I have here this evening with us? Does that make sense? What we just talked about? Hopefully, thumbs up. I'll take that as a yes. Oh, thank you, Carlos. All right, so let's look at let's go through the overview. We'll go through the overview and then through each lesson, and then look at the assignments. So here we are, week 7, looking at early, middle, and late adulthood. Technically, I fall into middle adulthood, and I'm guessing most of you fall into early adulthood. So this will take you back to the module, this link here. This is last summer's walkthrough, but I will post tonight's walkthrough as soon as it's processed on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And then these are the course objectives that will be met during these 3 lessons. So as we move to early adulthood, what you have here is, this is last summer's walkthrough specific to early adulthood. I haven't been repeating those because that's pretty much the same information. But if you have questions, please reach out. These are your objectives for early adulthood. There is your reading. And I believe we've talked the past couple of weeks that readings might be fairly similar to each other. So really, whatever works for you, what type you like, speaks to you, use that one. So here is the Libre Texts version. I like this one very much. I think it's easy to read. It's short, it's sweet. The Lillian Valentine French book didn't used to be on LibreText, but it is now. And so I like that. Again, nice information as well. And then Course Hero talks about types of love in early adulthood. Developing relationships is one of the key things that we are working on at that time. And then what we're going to do for our activity or assignment, we're going to talk about adult learning theory. This is going to be a free write where you will kind of just write about your thoughts and feelings about what it's like to learn as an adult, but then also what is adult learning theory, and do you think it's true or helpful? Do you find it helpful? So especially in healthcare, I would say, although I think life is lifelong learning, it is lifelong learning. You don't just go to school, finish school, and then, oh, I'm done. I don't learn anything anymore. Life has a lot of experiences. And so it used to be everything was face-to-face. Now a lot of things are online, like this class. This class is entirely online. A lot of times there are students who might be in their 30s or 60s. I think 30s to 60s. I think at graduation, I think 2 years ago, maybe somebody in their 80s graduated. It was really quite interesting. And so we're looking at Malcolm Knowles' theory, which you can read about and think about. And we're talking about advantages and disadvantages of being an adult learner. And so rationales for your 2 advantages, 2 disadvantages, why you feel that way. Talk about similarities and differences between learning in a classroom versus in an online only environment. Do you prefer one or the other? So some students really like being in a face-to-face environment. You have the instructor right there, the students are right there. You can, interact with everybody. I've had some feedback in both classes that students actually would appreciate more discussions. Feedback in the past that I've had is that they didn't particularly care for discussions, but now they're saying that they would like more opportunities to interact. So I did not implement that in these classes, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that if you like that. I personally like the chat. I wish students would use that a little bit more. But for all I know, y'all are behind the scenes talking to each other, which would be amazing. And then 3 tips for success for the adult learner. So what are things that you have done as an adult learner that really set you apart? And so when we look at, if you think about what it was like to be in, say, for example, elementary school, you, although ways of teaching have changed as well, but when I was in elementary school, you had the book and you learned and the teacher taught you and you did this and you had a lesson and you learned that. And there wasn't a lot of critical thinking necessarily done. We certainly didn't, at 10 years old, there's not much life experience behind you. And then in high school, it was kind of the same thing. Nowadays, I know the teachers, my kids as well, did a lot of writing I don't want to say it, a lot of writing about how they feel and how they look at different things based on evidence-based practice and current events. So I think that is important as well. But the key thing about adult learning theory is that it is based on experiences that you've had. When I take a class, I'm thinking about how can I make that real for me? How does that make sense in my life? What works for me? Memorizing things doesn't work so much anymore for me. I have to put it in context or associate it with something. So those are some of the things that are specific to adult learning theory. Different resources here, again, speaking to Malcolm Knowles' theory. And then there is your rubric for that. And then if we go back to early adulthood and the journal entry, you're going to look at, it's more in the, you learned about health screening for adults, thinking about how health screening relates to you in your stage of growth and development. So we'll look at that also in middle adulthood. That might not be correct. I'll have to go back and double check because I don't think that particular entry is correct. I'll go back and fix that because I'll go find it. I get creative and change things. I'm so sorry. Let's see. And then let's look at the lesson briefly here. Here we go. So the different outcomes, the lesson objectives, there's your reading again, your activities and assignment. You have a PowerPoint. Now, we learned about the theorists. You learned about that in week 1. And some of you actually, for your aha moments or things that challenged you in the week 6 quiz, was learning about the different theories and now really seeing them in action. Specifically, Kohlberg's theory was mentioned by many students in terms of it's not just you do this because it's right or wrong. When societal things and things with peers are coming through it, it kind of makes you think differently about things. We're also starting to go beyond just Erikson and Piaget and looking at Levinson, Havinghurst, more of the adult theorists as well. Health screenings. So these are the different health screenings. There's actually, I'll go ahead and show you because they've updated it. Every year it gets updated. This is the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force site. And for example, how often do you get a mammogram? How often should prostate screening be done? Things like that. And so this U.S. Preventive Services Task Force actually comes up with the guidelines for that. Often we'll hear that the guidelines have changed, and that's based on evidence-based practice. So for example, if we look here, these are A category things are things that there's lots of evidence and screening should be done. The B category is that there is lots of evidence, but not quite as much as the A evidence, but it still should be, it's still a high recommendation. And so it will give you the different topics. They've added things like food insecurities, breastfeedings in there. There's intimate partner violence. There are more sexually transmitted infections listed. Osteoporosis is another one. These are all things that were added in 2025. And it will take you through different screenings through the years as they have been added. And so I think it's a cool site to just kind of look and see, well, do I agree with that? Should it really be every year or every other year? Colonoscopy, for example, every 10 years if you don't have a high risk. Oh, I don't know. You see Cologuard ads all the time on TV that you can, the mail order stool sample to check for colorectal cancer. Basically, they're checking for blood in your stool. But is it okay to do that, or do you actually need to have a colonoscopy? That comes, I think, with risks. You're under anesthesia for that. There's different things to think about in terms of screening. Here's information about adult learning theory, communication in marriage. Here's what we were talking about in the journal week 7. For things to go in and look at that. So let's go to this particular page of the Preventive Services Task Force. So I can show you how to do this because it's a little bit different. They have an app now that you can use. I'm on my computer, so the best thing for me to do is go here and go to the web and click on the TV screen, and it will give me information. I've already put in my my information, and so that's why it's saved. You go in and you put in your age, weight, height, gender, are you pregnant or not, have you smoked, are you sexually active, and then it will give you, based on the criteria that you put in, it'll give you your BMI, which I will say, yes, that's a 37.6 and classified as obese, but I will tell you that my BMI was 45 2 years ago. So I'm pretty happy with that BMI right now, as well as that current weight. And then basically you can go through, like I was just talking about colorectal cancer. There are screenings. Here's the A, there's 6 recommended that you really should do. 18 recommended that are really highly recommended, not as much evidence, but you should still have those screenings done. And then things that are selectively recommended and things that aren't necessarily recommended for my age group. Okay, for my age group and my weight and my height, those things. So what you would do, what I did is I went and I looked at colorectal cancer, and you basically look at all these different buttons. So the recommendation, what is the recommendation, right? So the recommendation is screening for all adults age 50 to 75. So if I'm thinking about this in my journal entry, do I think that 50 years old makes sense? Why not 40? Why not 30? Why not 60? And why are we only going to 75 years old? Does that make a difference? It also talks here, gives me different examples of the types of screenings that you can do. You can look at the assessment. And these are different strategies that they have. So there's all this information out there. And so they have looked at this and found that that age is one of the most important risk factors for colorectal cancer. And so the incidence rates increase where new cases happen in adults 45 years or older. And so that's why we're not doing the screening sooner. So for me, I think it should be 45 years. If you're saying that's what it is, right now it's 50, but maybe it should be 45 if that's what you're saying. And then for adults, they were not seeing it in adults as much over 75 years old. That was another piece of it. And then it gives you other supporting evidence. It will give you different tools that are used or different resources where you can go. But I chose that one because I'm of that certain age to have that screening done. Then if you click the summary, it will basically give you a summary of all of that information. So actually for adults that are 45, like I just said, I really think it should start at 45. It's actually the category or grade B, which is, yes, it's highly recommended, but not enough evidence to say, yes, it needs to be grade A for sure. Which I think is interesting. One of my whole reasons for having you do the assignment is, what do you think about it? What do you think about the government? This is a government agency, or someone else telling you how often you should screen for certain things, for colorectal cancer, how often you should have a mammogram. I think that's kind of interesting in terms of who decides that, because does insurance cover it? Does insurance not cover it? Do certain things matter depending on your gender, or if you're pregnant or not, or height or weight? What are those different things? We continue across and look at risk factors. So they said age was the most important risk factor. And it doesn't let you go back very easily, which I found very frustrating. So I apologize for that. Not my fault, but I just think it was pretty Frustrating. And so recommended screening strategies would be the colonoscopy screening every 10 years, which is pretty much what people have done. You could do CT scans or sigmoidoscopies. So the sigmoidoscopy only goes up into part of the colon. You could do the DNA test. That would be like what the Cologuard is. So those are all other options. So that's what you're going to be doing, is looking at those in terms of which of your age and health risks that you have, and then you put in all your information. I gave you some screenshots there. I told you I did colorectal cancer and thyroid dysfunction. So this is pretty much how you would do your journal entry, is what I'm showing you. You don't have to do the screenshots, but review the information. And then, like I said, we looked over all those recommendations. I read all of that. I looked at all of that and the risk factors, and then you're supposed to reflect. And so, do you agree or disagree? Should it start earlier or later? And so I answered those. So hopefully that helps you in looking at that. I always think it's kind of interesting to say, oh, well, they say 50. Well, what about 40? We used to do mammograms a lot earlier. I have my niece on my husband's side actually passed away at 35 years old from breast cancer. She and her twin sister share the BRCA gene. So that was very sad for our family. Okay, that was part of the lesson. I will go back and add that to the early adult page so that all of that information is there. And we looked at the lesson, we looked at that assignment. All right, so that is early adulthood. Let's move on to middle adulthood, which is my age range there. So we have our again, our objectives, things that we're going to learn. Again, you have your reading from those same things. Relationships change in middle adulthood, and work and personality changes. We have a lot of hormonal changes going on in middle adulthood. And okay, I thought I changed that. I am not happy with myself right now, but that's okay. We will persevere. Let me change that. I will change that later because it will look too funny. Let us look at the lesson and see what we're talking about here. So same type of things, looking at the reading, looking, here's your activity assignment. There we go. That's before I need to change that on that front page. And then your journal entry. So looking at the, we'll talk about the journal entry, looking at generativity versus stagnation, right? That's Erik Erikson. And then talking about Robert having her. So what you're doing here is actually a compare and contrast of two different middle-age theories and what do you think about them? And so having her says some developmental tasks of middle adulthood might be achieving civic and social responsibility, maintaining an economic standard of living. Hopefully by middle age, you're able to do that, developing some adult leisure time activities, maybe so you're not working all the time, and relating oneself to one's spouse as a person. Because now, especially when you hit retirement age or a little bit older, you are spending a lot of time together, probably more so than you have at any point in your earlier life. And so what does that look like? I often wondered, well, why do people get divorced once the kids move out? And once you're older, you've been married for 30 years, 25 years. Why get divorced now? But a lot of times it's because you're spending more time together and things just, you've perhaps outgrown each other. And so then talking about Erik Erikson, you know, talking about generativity. Do I feel like I have, you know, left something for other people that are coming behind me, right? Especially as you get into your 60s. You know, or do I feel like I'm stuck? Do I feel like I'm stuck someplace? I'm really not moving. I haven't really contributed to a lot of things. You know, what am I doing to make a difference, I guess, is kind of how I would look at that. And if you don't master that task, then you might feel stagnation, right? And then that will carry on as you move into late adulthood. And so you really want to find, hopefully, connection with others and being able to make a difference. I think those things are important. And so the assignment is actually a new one. I used to do the watch party, but that didn't work very well. It was watch a movie and answer some reflection questions, and you're supposed to do it kind of as groups, and I could never get students together. So what we're going to do for this particular assignment is look at menopause. Anybody familiar, know anybody going through menopause, perimenopause? Um, Kind of an exciting, definitely different stage of life. And so what I thought I would have you do, because I think it's really actually kind of cool, is that we are going to look and study Melanie Sanders. And she has, one day she is, I don't think you call her a blogger, she's an Instagrammer, she's on Instagram. And she is of a certain age and in perimenopause, and she just is having a brain fog and she just can't remember things. And she's got two pairs of glasses because she's got her readers for up close and her long distance glasses. And her husband doesn't, she feels like her husband doesn't really understand what she's going through. And so she was doing Instagram posts. And then one day she just posted, she was in her car and she just could not get it together. And she just posted how she felt about it, that she was perimenopausal and there were these hormonal changes going on, and nobody understood her, and she just couldn't take it anymore. And she just said, I don't care. I don't care if you think about this about me, or I don't care if you think that about me. And she posted it and she got some responses back. And so she posted again on something else. And she got like over 1 million, I kid you not, 1 million followers on her among all her platforms, because she's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. TikTok was the other big one that she's on a lot. And she started this movement. So when we talk about generativity versus stagnation, I think she really falls into that generativity piece of it, and making connections with people and finding something that really speaks to people. And so she's like, I don't care about being perfect. I don't care about PTA meetings. I don't care about replying to the group text. We're tired. We've done enough. If not, welcome to the club, right? And so all these people on Instagram or with TikTok have joined this movement, this club, the We Do Not Care Club. And so I actually have some little blurbs here. This is her on one of the original videos when she was talking about how everything came into being. She was also interviewed by Katie Couric. And also The View had a little segment about her. So you can watch those different things on there. She's really sweet. She lives in Florida. And the We Do Not Care Club is for perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal women. So as you read through the lesson, you will learn about all of that. And so what you're supposed to do is reflecting on, go to, if you're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, like put in her name, put in We Do Not Care Club, and do some research on her. Look at some of her videos. You can scroll on Instagram and just look at everything. And what does it teach us about what it's like to be in your 40s, 50s, or 60s? Many of you are in your early adulthood, right? So, but you probably know somebody who's in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. And so what does it mean about work stress or caring for somebody else or meeting everybody else's needs? That's where many of us in our 40s and 50s, I have just crossed over into my 60s, but it's been about meeting other people's needs. What about meeting my needs now? That's a big part of that as well. And do you think, or how might gender identity, sexual orientation, family roles, relationship dynamics, those kind of things, how might that shape somebody's experiences in the We Do Not Care Club? Melanie Sanders also pointed out that once her husband started looking at some of her videos, it really helped him as a support person understand more about how she was feeling. And so I think if you're not menopausal or perimenopausal, but you know somebody who is, I think this assignment can also bring awareness to people about what is important to people in this particular age range. And so connect your response to developmental theories. Like, how does that reflect generativity versus stagnation? Does it connect at all with Havinghurst, any of his developmental tasks that that you've been learning about? And then apply your perspective as a future healthcare professional, because that's what we're doing. We're taking growth and development and looking at it from the lens of a healthcare professional. Are there in these videos that she puts out, or in the responses that you see, because it's not just the videos that she puts out, it's the comments that people leave, that they're like, oh yeah, this happened, and oh gosh, thank you for talking about this, and oh, when I'm at work, or when I'm with my spouse, or when this happens. And other people will actually post, this is what do they say? They say, this is my application for the We Do Not Care Club. And so what are you seeing? Are there any particular health stressors or coping strategies that you see reflected in on these platforms? How might partners or spouses or family members support someone going through this particular shift, this change in life? And then there's an optional creative add-on if you want to actually apply or actually post to social media. You can feel free to do so. And she actually has had people on there say, yes, I'm using this for a class. I haven't done my post yet, but I was going to do a post for that. But you certainly can. And I think that would be awfully fun. And so what you're going to do is a reflection, answers all the questions that were just posed above, applying it to developmental theories, and then the perspective as a future healthcare professional. And then if you, in some way, we will do some kind of bonus points or something if you actually post to social media. I haven't figured that out yet, but we'll get some extra points there for people that want to do that. So basically what you're going to do is answer these questions, right? Answer 1 and 2, and then connect it to theories, and then connect it to being a healthcare professional. So 2, 4, 6 questions that you answer for the assignment. What else? So I thought that would be hopefully kind of fun, real time, real life experiences. And the interesting other thing I thought was, it's not just America. She has people from Ireland, England, Scotland, Australia, people from all over the world that have joined the club and shared their experiences. And so I think it's a really cool thing. So I'm hoping that that students enjoy that. Are there questions on that? Does that make sense, what you're supposed to do? Questions or
Yes.
thumbs up? Yes. What do you think? Does it sound like it might be kind of fun, or kind of like, eh?
For me, it sounds fun.
Sarah's like, oh, okay, I like a thumbs up. Thank you. Okay. All right, so we talked about that. There's your lesson. Talking again about the developmental stages, it gives you that midlife crisis. So midlife crisis, we kind of call it midlife transition now. And men do go through this as well. There are hormonal changes in men as well. They're just not necessarily as pronounced, I guess you might say, as in women, but that happens as well. And here is another. I love the TED Talks. Pascal talking about, we need to rebrand it. How does that happen? And then talking about menopause. Menopause is misunderstood. Another nice little TED Talk there. And that is middle adulthood. And I'll make sure I go back when I'm done with this and make sure that everything matches on the pages and the lesson pages on the overview. And so lastly, we're going to look at late adulthood, and looking at some more theories, again, moving past just Erikson, Piaget, and Havighurst. We'll look at Ashley's stages of retirement, Peck's developmental theory of aging, looking at some of the nutritional requirements. Again, here is your reading. We're also going to speak to different types of dementia and delirium. Excuse me, looking at that in terms of, how do you recognize signs? What are the stages? What can you do if you notice that a family member may be exhibiting some of these signs or symptoms of dementia? And so for this particular learning activity, pictures and perceptions of aging in older adults, there's our lovely Betty White, who has passed since I originally put this together, but I still think it's still nice. And she says I may be off my rocker, but at least I'm not talking to it yet. I really had a lot of respect for her. I think she was an amazing woman. And so as we get older, we have to think about um, our developmental stages, but I think we have to worry about like food, shelter, and clothing again. Again, I understand that that happens throughout life, but if I am having difficulty with my memory or being able to do daily tasks of living, what kind of care do I need? Those people that find themselves in middle adulthood, it's often called the sandwich generation because you are probably still dealing with children and taking care of your children as well as aging parents. And that can be quite difficult. My father passed when I was in college, so I didn't experience it quite as much as I did with my mother, who I actually, we were living in Ohio at the time, but I came back to California to care for her and do her palliative care when she had cancer and did palliative care and hospice care for her. And then a few years after that, my husband's mother developed dementia. And so we ended up bringing her out to California from Ohio. She also was having some heart problems. And so that was quite challenging as well. It's kind of scary, kind of scares me a little bit to think about getting older and older. And so for this particular assignment, what you're going to do is provide a picture that depicts how you feel about the elderly and write a paragraph, which is your usual 5 sentences at least, that explains your feelings, right? How do you feel about the elderly? Um, you know, I I teach clinicals in the nursing program, and I'm actually one of the geriatric content experts. And I like going to the long-term care facilities and talking to the elderly. I think there are so many experiences that they have to share. But do I want to take care of them? Not necessarily. I can't. I've taken care of family members. It's very difficult for me to actually think about providing care, nursing care, for example, to them. But talking to them, providing emotional care, I'm all about that. There was a gentleman, I was at Ace Hardware over the weekend, and there was a gentleman, pretty sure he had some type of dementia. He had mobility issues, and he was coming out of the store as I was going in, and I had Petunia with me, and he just kind of stopped, like he couldn't keep moving forward, and I could see there was some momentary lapse of like, what am I supposed to do? And his beautiful wife was there. Come on, Bob, come on, let's go. We gotta go. And he just kind of looked at her, and I looked at her. And I said, "Oh, hi." I said, "Let's walk this way. Come on, let's go. Tell me about yourself or something." We talked about the dog. We kept walking, and he there were moments of salience that I could see that he had questions. He loved Petunia. He had some questions, and the poor wife, I felt so bad for her because she's, come on, let's keep moving. And I told her, I said, it's okay. I'll walk with him. It's all right. And I love things like that. I think that's really, I think of that as a special moment. And so then after you've talked about how you feel about the elderly and provided a picture, a cartoon, a meme, a GIF, I don't know, whatever, doesn't have to be a person, whatever makes you think about the elderly, how, it relates to the elderly. Then think about how it might feel to be admitted to a long-term care facility. We place our parents, grandparents, other relatives in long-term care facilities. What does that mean? What do those look like? There are different types of long-term care facilities. And how might that make you feel, right? Describe your feelings. What are expected age-related changes, right? Your vision, your hearing, your appetite, your sleep schedule, those things that change. And as you get older, women tend to live longer. How are you living without your support person, without your spouse of many years, for example? Um, and if you were the elderly client, what personal attributes in a caregiver would be important to you? If I were to go to a long-term care facility and have to live there, what would be important to me? An attribute of a caregiver. I'd want them, to be caring and friendly. I'd want them to talk to me. And treat me with respect, be honest with me, those kind of things like that, right? And then look at the following principles of elder care. Here's a link to the reading that talks about this. And as a healthcare professional, which two do you feel are most important to include in your care of the elderly? So, as a healthcare professional providing care for an elderly person, thinking about growth and development, and then taking that, looking at these particular principles of elder care, which two are the most important for you to include in your care? So, encouraging confidence, a kind and caring manner, active listening goes back to therapeutic communication, integrating spirituality, setting personal goals, those types of things. I think for me, it would be demonstrating a kind and caring manner, um, and probably empowerment or confidence, I think would be important to me. And I do also like to include the family and social support system. So you answer 1, 2, and 3, and you are good to go. So at least 4 paragraphs, because it gave you paragraph guidelines here for each section. Here's some more links to articles that you can look at. And then there is your the rubric for you for how to earn the points. So there's that. And then let's go back and look at late adulthood again. Oops, come back. There we go. And the readings we did, and then the that was the assignment, and then the journal is looking at the generation chart, excuse me, the generational chart. And who do we define as our elderly? Which generations are currently in long-term care facilities? Which generation do you belong to? How do you hope to age? How do you think the care of elderly might change as millennials, Gen Z, and alphas enter into late adulthood? So if I look at this particular chart, me personally, I fall into Gen X. My husband is a baby boomer. I have 2 millennials and a Gen Z, and my granddaughter is a Generation Alpha. My parents, let's see, my mom was a silent generation, and my dad was a greatest generation. And so it also kind of tells you where the world wars are, what was going on when things were invented. So you kind of look at kind of what was going on in history at those times. You can also see how the world population has grown over that whole time frame in those many decades and generations. And what do you think? So who do we define? Am I consider is Gen X elderly now? I think it's kind of the baby boomers. There's not many silent Gen people, but there are still some around. So probably silent generation and some baby boomers. But pretty soon it'll be Gen Xers in long-term care. And so what does that mean for how we care for them? Right? And what as Gen X and as millennials, as my kids get older, they're in their 30s right now. My youngest is 25, but my other 2 are in their 30s, still early adulthood. But what does it mean for them when they get into long-term care? They've grown up with electronics and information at their fingertips, things right there. So what are some things that they might need or be interested in, or what modern marvels of technology will be available as they get older? That always, I think, is interesting. And then if we look at the lesson, we'll look at that real quick, and then I believe we should be pretty much done. So again, your objectives, your reading, activity, the journal, and oh, there, now you can see it much bigger. There we go. XYZ, there we go. Yeah, Coca-Cola. First smartphone. Woo. Okay, and so you have a PowerPoint you can look at. There's a couple articles on ageism. So being, I guess, prejudiced or racist against those who are elderly. Different living spaces. What are options as you get older? Where can you live? Can you move in with your kids, your grandkids, into a facility? Where my husband and I are actually looking. He's 9 years older than I am. He's the baby boomer, and looking at retiring here pretty soon. So he would like to move to Florida and go play golf all the time. And I think that's not bad because I could swim all the time. And so we're thinking about being able to do that. There are your theories that we are looking at now. And then the information about dementia and types of dementia. There are different types of dementia. Remember when my mom's mom, my grandmother, had dementia, she was very paranoid and she couldn't remember things. And she thought I was my aunt's daughter because I'm so much younger than everybody else in the family. She couldn't place me in time. So she would often call me Kit instead of Sean. But this gives you the different types of dementias. This is not an all-inclusive list, but we know, for example, like Robin Williams has dementia, has had Lewy body dementia. I have a friend who has temporal dementia. So just different articles on the types of dementias and understanding them. It talks about stages of Alzheimer's. So there's a couple of good resources there for different stages of Alzheimer's. That'll help people that might be working on that for their health promotion project. Talking about nutrition. So My Plate for older adults, immunizations. Again, we talk about immunizations for adults here, the 50 to 64. So early adulthood here. In the adolescent, early adulthood to middle adulthood to late adulthood, what ones are, specific to each of those age groups. I know my doctor says you have to get the shingles vaccine. I'm like, okay, yes, but no, I had chicken pox. I know I'm at risk for it, but let's just do the pneumococcal first, and then I'll work on the shingles. But there are a lot, not a lot, but there are still vaccines that need to happen. And then you also have based on medical conditions, because if the person is immunosuppressed, then they can't have live vaccines, or if they miss a dose, what do they do? So those different recommendations are there for you. And that would be that particular lesson. And so let's go back to the overview. Did that, we did that, we did that. Let me stop sharing because we're coming up on our 1 hour mark here. Questions? What do you think about all that that information as we move into the older segments of development?
I think all that sounds good. I'm super interested, to dive into a little bit more of it. I just you kind of think of adulthood as being just adulthood, but it's interesting to separate it out into three different, three different areas,
Yeah.
because it is quite different as you work through your adulthood, especially as your family grows up and moves out and moves on.
Or moves back in.
Yeah, right, exactly. I did have a quick question, if I could.
Mhm. Yes.
So a paper or a detailed written summary, meaning could we like just address each section by number? So like, for example, like number 1 was select a health need, define your target. So it could be like number 1, kind of do it that way instead of.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
feeling a little bit overwhelmed with a lot of the writing stuff that's coming up due, and I'm like, I don't know if I have it in me to do like a full detailed big paper. I mean, obviously would if I had to, but if I could separate out a little bit, that makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, you can. I think it says through 1 through 10, you could do that as a summary. And so yeah, you can like bullet points, but oh yeah, yeah, you can do that part as bullet points. Let me, for the health promotion campaign, right? Let me pull it up and so that we gotcha. So that we're looking at it in the same way, and I can make sure I'm answering the questions appropriately. So let's pull up, let me get out of student view. Let me go to modules. Because I try to give some options where I can, so it's not always writing papers. But I know it gets confusing because I'm confusing. So I
No,
appreciate
you definitely did say, to do a detailed summary or a paper. I just wanted to make sure that, if I were to, as the
yeah,
instructions say, like number 1, if I wrote number 1
yeah,
and then, defined the bullet,
yes,
expanded on
and
those
that's
bullet
fine.
points from there.
Right. And so what, like, give me an example, Sarah, of like what you're thinking about you might want to do.
So I have it kind of I have it outlined out on, old fashioned binder paper right now. Uh,
Yeah. I like binder
so I'm gonna
paper.
do like I guess it's considered middle adulthood, like 36 to 60
Hmm.
of adult obesity.
Okay. Yeah. And so that's what you would do. The target population would be, say, like you're saying, middle adulthood, the relevant health issue you might want to include if you're saying obesity, why you're choosing that. Is there some reason that makes that come top of mind to you? And then that might also come back into the research section as well. So what's the target population? Yeah, you could just do those like as bullet points, looking at the
Oh,
theories. Yeah.
boomer, my dog's about to bark.
Uh-oh.
Saw someone walking by. Um, okay, perfect. So just yeah, doing that kind of a
And
summary
are
of
there social determinants that might affect, might neighborhood and like, is neighborhood an
comics.
issue? Is community an issue? Is economics? And as you get older, maybe that change? You're
Yeah,
looking at middle adulthood, but yeah.
yeah, those are the things that I was thinking too of, do you have the financial ability to, work out at a gym and buy healthy food, those types of
Yeah, exactly. Take my social justice class and we get all
things.
into that
I
kind of
bet.
stuff.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. And then you do your design. The campaign design is you're kind of thinking about, how am I going to make this happen then? Am I going to do like a social media campaign? Am I going to go to I don't know, wherever middle adults hang out and talk to them, or what kind of tactics and resources would I need, that kind of thing. Um, and then try to think about, if you're going to put all this up, you're not actually doing it, but were you to do this, you're going to put all this effort into getting the information out there. What is your goal? Are you just trying to get information out there about risk factors perhaps for obesity, or you want to teach people how to make better food choices? You want to actually bring social determinants into it, identify them, and help people that way, like coming up with specific goals, right? So then how do you evaluate that your campaign was in fact successful? You won't know for sure because you're not actually implementing it. However, what are you looking at? Oh, I had 50 people, 25 people that took my flyer, right? Or
Mhm.
I called, of the 20 people, 25 people that took my flyer, they left a phone number or an email, and I sent a survey to them to see if they had made different food choices. I don't know, I'm just giving you off
Yeah,
the top of my head
I was,
examples, but yeah.
yeah, I was kind of thinking, my idea I had at first was like a game board of sort where, people like I reached out to people in the community and, there was a couple of gyms and a couple of local, like, health food stores and maybe a couple of like weight loss therapists that would want to be involved. And people can, check off on their game board when they've shopped at these
Oh
places,
yeah. Hmm.
so it can be interactive in a way, but not maybe make people feel like they have to go to a meeting or show up somewhere because being overweight can, you know, hinder
I
your
do know.
confidence. And so not, you may not want to show up and be like, hi, I'm here because I'm overweight, but you may want to have
Hmm.
something that you feel like you're, I don't know, playing a game a little bit and still being involved in the community,
Hmm.
but maybe not, shouting it from the rooftops.
Hmm. I think it's important to think about, we call it motivational interviewing in nursing. And I run this course like you were in a course in nursing and health sciences, so RCP or whatever. And so some of these things, if you ever end up there, we do actually implementation projects like this particular health promotion campaign, and motivational interviewing in terms of, like, why do I want to make a change, right? I am 50 years old. I'm well past 50 now, but I am 50 years old, say, for example. Um, why would I want to change my eating habits? Why would I want to, what's in it for me? Is it my health? For me, it was my granddaughter,
Mhm.
and so I've tried everything. I've tried Weight Watchers, I've tried, everything. And so I'm finally doing, I kind of like say intermittent fasting and eating more protein. It's kind of a cross between keto and intermittent fasting. My mobility is kind of limited. So, but I've lost like 60 pounds over 2 years. And
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
I still have more to go, right? But I would say it had to do with being in that generativity versus stagnation, right? Do I just want to sit here, or do I want to make a difference or have an impact or spend time with people, or do I want to, be stuck at home? Right?
Right.
No, I want,
Exactly.
right? So sometimes if we can find almost for any type of health promotion campaign, what is the motivation? What is the deciding factor that's going to make the person want to stop the poor behavior? I can use my husband as an example because my baby boomer that just walked in the room, he smoked. He smoked since he was, I don't know, 14 years old. He's quit smoking several times. And it always comes back because it's an addiction, right? But, there's not really been a specific, even though his doctor, me, the kids, we've all talked to him, but he's just stubborn. But there's just not a defining factor for him. So it doesn't matter how much I teach him, talk to him, tell him to do research. He's not going to change, right? And so I think that's something in health education, to keep in mind. I can talk all the time, but if I don't assess first or figure out why this is happening or why we want to change the behavior, that's an important piece to understand.
Yeah, especially in these adulthood, categories too. Way more set in their ways.
Oh, yes, we are. I find that as I get older and older that I am way more set and way more grumpy much
Yeah.
sooner than I used to be. So, and I did put an announcement out with the due dates because you and Neri were correct. They are different due dates, but I had put them too soon, so I did switch them. So thank you
Okay.
for bringing
And
that out. So I
you're welcome.
posted
I
that.
did, and I saw that, and so the one says that the health promotion campaign is due July 27th, which is Sunday,
Correct. Mm-hmm.
but Saturday, it says Saturday by 23:59.
Oh, did I write is it supposed to say Sunday?
I think so.
Sorry.
I don't,
Probably. Oh, probably Sunday. Yes.
okay, that's okay. I just wanted to double check. I'm like, I'm trying to get on board with that military time. I'm not good at, I'm like counting.
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
what does that mean?
Midnight.
That's okay.
Midnight.
Perfect. Okay.
Sorry. Midnight. Yeah, because and mostly because it's going to take me a while to go through them, and as you all know, I've not gotten through all the journal entries so far. So, but I am making some progress in other things, but I want to be able to have it done, so I can post your grades for sure.
Okay. Thank you. That sounds good.
Yeah, great questions. How about you, Dulce or Carlos? Any questions? Any comments?
I don't have any questions right now, but I will send a message if I do.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, send a message, make appointments. Dulce has been very good at that. We have like almost a weekly meeting, which is great. I love to get to know you all that way. What else? I am going to stop the recording.